We're live.
Emilio esta vez. Well, good morning, everyone. It's the one and only V, the Girl Economist, and CJ, the producer, with the two brown boys that are here to save the world and save the Republic. That being said, follow us on Twitter at The Real Rogue News. Check out roguenews.com. And every single podcasting app known to humanity. We're pretty much everywhere you want us to be, plus a bag of chips. And with that being said, El Cuco. I almost forgot. Check out our paid sponsor, my CBDedibles.com, mycbdedibles.com, for all your delicious CBD needs, as well as my Patreon. Just support me. Come on, you know you love me. You know you want some gorilla. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, you can join me over at Patreon, and that's about it. With that being said, El Cuco, what's going on, brother?
Hey, doing great, V. Great interview yesterday with Harley Schlanger. I really enjoyed it. You guys knocked it out of the park yesterday.
Yes. We were hitting it out of the ballpark. It was quite incredible. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's just always just so much, going on, V, and
it's insanity, man.
It's insanity, and it's like I heard you say yesterday, like when you guys started to point out like the uprising that's occurring, around the globe, right? It's globally occurring right now, and there's a lot of talk around the cycles that we're entering in, and that it's one of those cycles that this typically will happen, and it's a direct result in part because two factors is the monetary system is collapsing, the fiat system. And two, for the most part, central governments have really failed us, and that includes here in the United States, V.
Yeah, everywhere you look, right? Every single place you could possibly take a look, the governments have totally failed. It's just not even. Dude, when you look at everything right now, everything that's been established for the last 150 years, all the institutions, banking, central banking, health institutions, educational institutions. CJ, honestly, let's take a look at this. What institution that has been erected in the last 150 years, 200 years, as being the vaunted institutional safeguards of civilization, what institution, pray tell, has not been assaulted, has not been questioned, has not been fully challenged to the umpteenth level, to the point that many of these institutions that we've had for the last 150 years are reaching the point of irrelevancy, CJ? Have you ever lived at a time such as, think about this, dude. Banking, education, healthcare, right? When you look at all these things, it's incredible. And you know what's most incredible as well is the things that were assaulted, right? The institutions that were wholesome and good and vital for civilization and for human development. Those institutions that have been assaulted since the 60s, which is marriage, the family, gender roles, right? Traditional gender roles. These things that held and that hold civilization together. Those were being assaulted. Now, when you look at it, they're on the resurgence. Nationalism was assaulted since the 1920s and 30s by the technocrats. Now nationalism is on a resurgence everywhere you look globally, CJ, whether it's the United States, whether it's in crazy Canada with Trudeau winning a second round, whether it's in Europe, whether it is in the Middle East or North Africa, South Africa, Central Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Lebanon, Argentina, Chile, Hong Kong. All of this resurgence of hey, we want to be in charge of our own destinies as a people that collectively belong to a nationalistic ideology or an ethno-nationalism in certain countries. And people are starting to recognize these things, CJ. It's incredible to see this, bro.
Yeah, Avi, for too long, we have been completely brainwashed by the media, by these organizations that were at one time, one could probably argue the case that maybe these institutions were set up, probably for a good cause at some point.
Yep.
But along the way, when money and the funds start to roll into these institutions, and then the corporations get involved with it starts to pollute the entire system. And we see that time and time after again. You name numerous examples. Now, I do also want to state in terms of nationalism and that word, because that's kind of thrown around, quite a lot. And some people associate that with like right-wing ideologies. And I don't. I look at that entire nationalism piece more about individual freedoms, about individual liberties. We do not have to live in a collective society, where there is an elite group, 1%, that wants to dictate what we eat, what we're allowed to consume, what we're allowed to decide what is medicine. And the threatening point is even what we're allowed to even listen to, what we're allowed to perceive as news that's coming out. Those are the dangers that we're currently in. And unfortunately, because we have had the luxury here in the United States of having the reserve currency, many Americans are not awake to this. Now, I shouldn't paint with such a broad brush. I want to say some of the folks, in the inner cities, some of these, the youth that have been promised these high-paying jobs coming out of college, that those jobs are no longer there. There's been quite a bit of U.S. population who have been disenfranchised by this entire system, but their anger and their frustration, time after time again, is pointed in the wrong direction. It's pointed at their friends who disagree with them, with something that they heard in the news, that they want to perceive this information, and it all falls back into the propaganda that's been established with the mainstream media, the corporate politicians, all these things that we call now the deep state.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And anyway, what I'm saying is where we are with the deep state is it's very interesting. It's very interesting to say the least, because we are at a point where they are literally going for broke. I mean, think about it, man. I was saying this yesterday with Harley, and that is when the entire narrative, when the entire strategy becomes, hey, let's just get rid of this one guy. Either you're monumentally stupid or you're monumentally desperate. And Harley chimed in, and it's like, the answer is both. They're both stupid and desperate. And that really still begins to show that the hour of the inevitable is literally seconds away, literally minutes away. Something has to pop. Either they're going to try and depose this president, or what has been in the works. And folks, while everybody's looking at this distracted circus show called the impeachment, there is serious headway being made when it comes to the Hillary Clinton investigations with the 33,000 emails, many of which have been recovered. There are still major headway being garnered from the investigations into the Ukraine, into the Russian scandal. Those things are not going away. And because they're not going away, and that fishing net that's been cast far and wide is finally starting to encroach in. They're finally beginning to dredge closer and closer, and is starting to, and the fish that were swimming within the perimeters are now starting to sense that the net itself is enclosing, CJ. And now we're hearing word yesterday leaked from intelligence sources that many people in the intelligentsia are starting to lawyer up. Those that are connected to Clapper, those that are connected to Brennan, those that are connected to Lynch, those that are connected to Rice, those that are connected to Obama are starting to lawyer up. So you could say, in one sense, that, hey, this is all political theater to be famed. There's no good guys, bad guys. But damn it, man, if there's no good guys and bad guys, why go through all this? There is something that has been uncorked on a international and national scale, CJ. The genie is out of the bottle in the sense that there is some sort of a massive pushback that is occurring against globalism, and the powers that be cannot put that genie back in the bottle.
No, they cannot. And let's break that down a little bit, because you made a lot of great points. And you're exactly right. We're mostly, a lot of people perceive this as a battle left and right. The battle is to preserve the current system. That's the overall. So they want to keep this monetary charade of continuing. They want to keep the narrative in regards to the current, everything related to the health system. They want to control the ability to global wars, all these events, and that's all being accomplished through managing of the dollar and managing, and that's how they leverage the corruption, and they want that to continue. They don't want this gravy train of Washington D.C., the military industrial complex, the amount of wealth that has been truly extracted from the likes of you and I, our friends and our family, to an elite controlled 1%, that they, for the most part, that they control this globally, where all of this wealth has been extracted. And at the end of the day, they continue this vicious cycle, and not enough done. I hope that these things, this corruption, is going to be held accountable, but I also need to see some major pivotal changes in regards to some instrumental individuals like Julian Assange, these whistleblowers who have came out and shared the corruption of these intelligence services. Now, I'm not sure how much reach we can have globally to assist, but when you think of the Snowdens, when you think of the Mannings, when you think of Julian Assange, all these people are the ones that truly were able to really pull the cover back of this deep-seated, alphabet letters that have really just taken over the entire system. And we know, now that for the past probably 25, 30 years, they've been actually working to get politicians involved into the system just so that they can control it. It's just amazing to see this. And what you said is so true, that they cannot take it back, because they have lost the narrative. They've lost the narrative regarding the systems that are in place. People are starting to understand that, hey, you know what, maybe why shouldn't we be labeling GMO foods here in the United States? Or, hey, you know what, maybe why haven't we done a clinical studies to measure vaccinated children versus unvaccinated children to see why, autism rates in the next 30, 40 years could escalate to 1 in 50 children, which it may already be there. But these things that they've lost complete narrative. More people are awakening these. Just today, real quick story. So today, I was at the gym, and I had my Vaxxed T-shirt on from the original Vax that came on.
Yeah.
And I had a gentleman come up to me, and I had my headphones on. I was rocking out, and he was pointing to my shirt and everything. And I wasn't quite sure, what to expect. Keep in mind, primarily I'm in Carmel, Indiana, and the gentleman came up probably in his mid 60s or so, and he said, "Hey, I saw that movie for the first time, and I really want to tell you something. They're onto something." And he started to share about his grandchildren, and in part some of the things that he has been doing, just because there is so. What I'm getting at, V, is there's a lot more people who are really being red pilled, and that's the easiest. Like the metaphor that I can use is the blue pill, red pill. There are more people who are being red pilled that understand this level of massive corruption that's occurring. And what I don't like is pinpointing this to one figurehead consistently with Donald J. Trump, because
the awakening was happening way before he even showed up.
It was happening way before that. Absolutely.
Speaking of Del Bigtree and Vax, there is another movie coming out, isn't it?
Yes, huge release. Vax 2 is scheduled to be released. They're going to be going into a lot more detail, and I'm working. Definitely, I think we'll be able to get Del Bigtree, on the show another time again, and maybe we'll re-release his original interview that we did with him. But then also here locally, we have some very instrumental people who will be not only helping to get this movie out to theaters, but also helping with a major event that's going to be occurring in Washington D.C., and her name's Carrie Bundy, and she has a very personal message because she in fact did lose a child directly attributed to vaccines at a very young age. So it's very much impacted, and so definitely this part 2 that's coming up. There was a lot of promises being made after this movie was released. Dell met with several DC people. There was a lot of momentum that was going with this. Hey, yeah, we will start this vaccine committee to look at the safety of vaccines. We're going to use Robert Kennedy and see Jr., right? Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah, RFK
and
Jr.
RFK. We're gonna utilize him to do all this, and nothing happened. It just went away, and this is where it starts, and just for future generations, and your children's children and my children's children. Like, we have to stop this vicious cycle of this. I don't want the autism industry to. I don't want to become an industry like they've done with cancer. And that's what it amounts to, is that these things become so big that they start to understand the financial arm of these things. And that's why there's no fix to it, is that it becomes a financial mechanism to also keep us enslaved with medical bills, but also it becomes a big financial system that, like, look at cancer today. And again, those effects.
When the bullshit stops, the bullshit stops is when people start going to these pharmaceutical companies and these CEOs and start putting a bullet in their heads. That's what's going to stop at this point. Because look how sick these people are, CJ. Look how sick they are. You made a point. You're saying, we don't want this to be like we don't want this turning into a cash cow like what they do with cancer. Folks, let me tell you something. Cancer's damn near $5 trillion a year business. It's like, what are you talking about? Just a cancer? No. All the hundreds of thousands of jobs that are right now dependent upon somebody having cancer. The drugs, the medications, the treatments, the palliative treatments, the hospice care, this care, that care. I mean, dude, you're talking about an entire burgeoning industry, an entire bulging at the seams industry because of cancer. And the fact there's a financial incentives for everything from the drug companies to the research companies that are doing cancer research. Oh, we found a cure. Shit, this works. Let's just shelve it somewhere. There is a financial profit interest in making people live with cancer. And if they can make it, CJ, if they can find a way to have you dependent upon drugs for as long as possible when you're on cancer, they can do it. That's what they want. And I think the entire thing is going to stop when the people. I want people to think about this, right? Why do people think, right? There's a point. My dad always says this: don't be an asshole your entire life, right? Don't be an asshole your entire life. But dude, some people in this world, you got to understand, some people are so psychopathic. That they become the head of banks. They become the head of central banks. They become the head of defense industries. They become the head of drug companies. They become the head of computer companies. They become politicians in your state, federal and local levels, right? And to the point where things are so ballooned and so amassed in such a way that things are so metastasized in such a way that there's such a pooling and a concentration of wealth, CJ, that centers around DC and everything else. W said this to me years ago, right? I think him and I were hanging out in California, and he said this to me. He goes, the problem is DC. DC is the coronal head. It is the nexus. It is the center point of the virus that's permeating the entire country. In order to fix the country, you got to kill that virus. Because everything you think about it, CJ, everything from banking, everything from Wall Street, everything from the drug industry, everything from the military incompetent complex, everything from Death Incorporated that we call healthcare stems from the fact that they have bought and paid for individuals in Washington, D.C., stems from the fact that in every single one of those industries that I just mentioned has a revolving door in this criminal pantheon called Washington, D.C. Now, how? How do you eventually, because CJ, let's put it this way. When Del Bigtree came out with Vax the movie, and I said, holy shit, this is great. We're finally going to see some major changes happening. And we've seen RFK Jr. He is somebody who is, let's go after these drug companies. And then we're thinking that there's going to be this massive push, and then something happens. Something happens. Something or someone puts a bit and brittle into the mouths of all of these movements and individuals, and nothing goes nowhere and nothing gets done.
No, it doesn't, and then it usually gets worse. And I didn't cover that in great detail. And like I said, I would love to be able to get some guests on to go into further detail in regards to that event that's coming up in Washington V. And then also just to go over the facts. But there are also another guest I want to get on, and she shared this with me, and it's very interesting when she started talking about it. But what many people do not realize is that in their local communities, and most people are like, oh, that's not going to happen here, that's not going to happen. Most people don't understand that this started several years ago. But what is happening is that the federal government has been actually co-opting policies broken down to your county. Broken down to your county, your city. And how they do this, is they do this under the guise of federal grants. And these federal grants that are issued out, so like in Indiana, there's several counties around us that have accepted these federal grants. But what they don't tell you is that when these public officials accept these federal grants that are rolled into them, layered in are actual mandates from the federal governments that these municipalities have to cooperate with these certain things, everything from housing and who they can place in these housings to your vaccination schedules. These things are occurring right now around the United States everywhere, and most people have no clue that this is happening. I definitely want to get her scheduled on because she's been researching it. I can only speak to it just to a certain degree, but it's pretty alarming that for the most part that the federal government has really been undermining most of our cities, if not, and also our states with these policies and things they've been rolling out the last several years.
It's incredible, man. It's incredible. It's like nothing gets done, and they keep pushing people and pushing people. Folks, let me explain something to you. Back back before 1776, when our founders wrote the Declaration of Independence, right? When they wrote that Declaration of Independence, what they did was they were signing their death certificates. They were signing their death warrants. 3% of the population stood up against the largest, most prolific empire the world has ever seen. I mean, there's a saying that the sun never set on the British Empire, and it's true. For all around the globe, from east to west, was the British Empire. And less than 3% of the population stood up against them and won. And won. At a grave cost.
Yep, absolutely.
Look at where we are today with this level of craziness. There's a point where being civil and civic is not going to win. Why? Because we've lost the culture. You understand that? That's what we're fighting for. Being civil, you can be civil and civic to a point. But what happens when you lose the culture? See, I could be civil and civic with somebody who is also civil and civic, who understands that there's a commonality of culture, that we understand that we are Western, we understand that we both live in a constitutional, representative republic. But what do you do when you're sitting across the table from this frothing at the mouth, because they forgot to take their lithium and Prozac today, Antifa member or far leftist lunatic? How do you reason with people that froth at the mouth? How do you reason with the dredges that you see in Congress? How do you reason with a Maxine Waters? How do you reason with an AOC, with a Bernie Sanders? How do you reason with people that follow them? And I'm not saying every single one of them are like that, but how do you deal with the violent, vitriolic far left? Be civil with them, talk to them. You know, let me give you an example. In certain countries I've been to, all right? Case in point.
Yep.
Like in Russia, right? You have the alphabet crowd over there as well. The LGBTQRSTUVW hyphen question mark exclamation point community. Right? And whatever they do the, you know, how it was back in the 80s in this country. Whatever the hell you wanted to do, you did in the privacy of your own home. Nobody gives a rat's rear end. No, I mean, nobody gives a rat's rear end what you put in your rear end. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. But there's something that like Vladimir Putin said is best. He goes, you give these people freedom and liberty to do what they want and to present themselves in public however way they want, then they will turn around and take your freedoms. And that's how prophetic was that? Was those words? Because that's exactly what's happened in this country. When you start to celebrate these things that destroy, erode, and eradicate the culture, the very rudiments of civilization that has caused and created our civilization. Believe me, our civilization is not built on the fact that somebody could wear chaps and dance with his shirt off in a gay pride parade. That's not what built civilization, folks. Never has. Go throughout history, and if facts and history offends you, then I'm sorry. The only time I see this type of proliferation of abnormal behavior and abnormal death styles, I can't even call it a lifestyle. It's a death style. And there's a lot of statistical, evidential facts to back that up. Then we've lost the very moors of society. We've lost the culture. So when you lose the culture, how can then you be civic? Because at that point, you're not dealing with human beings. At that point, you're dealing with out of control individuals. At that point, you're talking about not all of them, but a good deal of them have completely lost touch with what they really are.
Yeah, I mean, that culture thing is you're right. A valid point. It's, you know, I always see the counter narrative that, okay, well, why didn't we adjust to the culture of the American Indians? Why, you know?
Because if we adjusted to the culture of the American Indians, you and I would be doing a broadcast on our teepee, doing smoke signals, and while I'm doing a rain dance outside. And we're talking about, you know, Tatanka, I want to hunt the buffalo. Give me a fucking break. I mean, seriously.
No, dude, I'm going. Give me a little bit. I'm going somewhere with that.
Go ahead, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. But what I was getting at was that in regards to, you know, what you stated was that the culture of acceptance of different things. It's tough for people to comprehend and really understand that, and it's deep reasoning. However, you know, at the same time, I think everyone can kind of listen to it and resonate it to. In one way was that, you know, if you have your belief system, great, you know, more about it, but it's kind of like the non-aggression principle or the non. So I don't necessarily need my family or whatever to be indoctrinated to what your belief systems are because you feel that that's the right thing to do, or your culture acceptance of things. That doesn't need to be indoctrinated into the elementary kids and these things of social, you know, acceptance. You know, yeah, I think can we teach our kids and everything, you know, right from wrong? Absolutely. But more times than not, like you made very valid points, is that when you look at the underlining systematic things of the breakdowns that have occurred in several areas of urban areas, is it systematically goes back to when there was a massive shifts of cultural changes that occurred. And primarily it's really when we went off the gold reserve system, and it really, you know, created a system where now, you know, at one time, you know, an honest person could go to work and get wages to support their family and take care of them. Where now, It's just you can't do that more times than not. It's mom and dad, or sometimes a single mom or a single dad that's out there, working and having to do everything, maybe 2 or 3 jobs. And I think that could be very part of the systematic breakdown that's occurring. And how do we get that back? How do we change those things? And then the last factor, the last variable I'll throw into it is this that, vote by your feet. If there's, a particular state and they're instituting these procedures and everything, then look for different states to move to. And we see that all the time with happening with,
what happens with that, CJ? Look at the locusts that are in California. They've destroyed that state. CJ, I remember back in the days, the missus and I was talking about this. We remember back in the days when, in the 80s and 90s, you were driving around in the cars, right? You see a license plate from California, like, oh, look, a California license plate. He's far from home. See, I'm driving around where I am. I see nothing but Cali plates. I'm seeing people in Texas are seeing nothing but California plates all over the place. People in Oregon and Arizona, it's proliferating with these parasites. And what these numbnuts do is they wreck the states that they're in. Then they migrate to the next neighboring state so they can go wreck that as well and instill the same social and political policies that have destroyed their own state. It's the most insanity, man.
Yeah, it is, and we're seeing quite a bit of that in from Illinois, and
because we lost the culture, bro.
The massive taxation that's occurring there. But yeah, I mean, is there a chance to change course? Absolutely, there is. And we just have to, continue to work to.
There's one chance, CJ.
What's that?
Got to restore the patriarchy.
Yeah,
there's only one chance.
And get more and get people to understand that it's a republic, and I know I've misstated before and said democracy, and
I think
that's not what we have.
I'm going to probably say the most politically incorrect thing I'm going to ever say. And I'm going to get a lot of heat from it. I think people are going to hate my guts for it, bro.
Go for it, bro.
Bro, I think it's so politically incorrect. But I've been doing many, many years of research into this. And some of the most level-headed people that I've spoken to, including my better half, is in total agreement with it. They're like, yeah, it makes sense. I think they should do it. I know how to save Western civilization. And I could do it in maybe 2 or 3 election cycles, have this whole entire thing fixed. It's crazy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know if I should say it, though.
No.
See, it's very politically incorrect, but it's the only thing, I swear to you.
Why don't we talk about it offline?
No. I think I'm going to say it.
Okay, go. But
I got to build a stage. I got to build a scene, so to speak, before I say it. But here it is. What do you see? Okay, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it, but I want every single one of you to visualize every single far leftist parade and protest. I want you to visualize all of it from January 20th of 2017 when Donald Trump took office till now. Visualize in your head the faces and the types and an emphasis on types of people that are in these movements. Look at any video, and I challenge any one of you, go on any one of these videos of these leftists protesting and look at the crowds. Look at the crowds. I'm going to tell you one way you fix this. And I think if they could do this, it'll be the end of the Democratic Party. It'll be the end of socialism. It'll be the end of globalism. Okay, and you can see a resurgence in Western culture. It'll be the end of beta males as we know it as well. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. End women's suffrage for at least 3 election terms.
End what?
End women's suffrage.
Oh.
Take away from them their ability to vote. And in 2 election cycles, you will have the entire Western world snap back to reality. When you look at every single video out there, when you look at where we are in society, it hinges on two things: far leftist feminist women and beta males. And when you look at the nature of women and how agreeable they are and how they want to always nurture and go along to get along and all this stuff, look at it. Look at what's happening in Europe. Look at all the leaders that are destroying Western culture. Who are they? They're all women. Look at the German parliament where they're saying, "Oh yes, we long for the day where there would be no more Germans, and the majority of people that are in Germany are non-German born women." What's happening here? When you look at the spelunking in the last 10 years, look at Libya, look at Syria, look at North Africa, look at all the shenanigans in the Middle East. Who were in charge at the time of the Obama administration of foreign policy? Women. How do we get here? The sexual revolution, women. What did Hitler say when he wanted to take over Germany? You bring me the women, and the men and the children will follow.
I'll have to, I haven't done enough research to.
There's a great video. I think one of the best guys who encapsulates this thinking.
Well,
okay, is Black Pigeon. Black Pigeon speaks women and West and civilization.
Well, if good, I'll just
good.
No, I was just going to state that that's interesting. But if that's true, though, you have to keep in mind that Trump has bought into that quite the exactly opposite of what you just stated, because
right, and that's why there's no long-standing glory. That's why Western civilization is doomed.
They're wanting to institute that non-elected people, in part females, just need to be appointed onto these councils, even though they've never been elected. And she's out with this entire women's foundation raising billions and billions of dollars, for these things. There's actual counties now, or states that have, proposed, like I think it was California Gavin, that every corporation on their board of directors must be half seated. These are the things that, and again, for people to see and understand these things in regards to the influence. But I'll have to do more research on that. I definitely see your point in terms of how these things have been instituted. But what's the name of the book? I'll check it out.
Well, you can first start off. There's a great video by Black Pigeon Speaks. This is something that I've inherently known about for years. And when he actually did a video on it, which I think they've been removing from YouTube, it's absolutely damn straight, dude. There's a reason why they were always banned from civic duty. There's a reason why. And it's called "Why Women Destroy Nations and Civilizations." And that's the first one by Black Pigeon. There's also a really great book, and the book is called "Testosterone and Civilization." Okay, dude, look, there's a feminist. Okay, there's a well-known feminist, and she's appeared on the Young Turks where they lambasted her, and she's appeared on David Rubin's show and all these other things. She said it best: if women were running society, if they were in charge of civilization, we'd all be living in mud huts right now wearing grass skirts. And that's the damn truth. It's just the way, and dude, it's just the way we are wired. Okay, it's just the way we're wired genetically. If you get women out of civic duty, where they can, and this other lie, go ahead, you need to be a career woman, this, that, and the other. No, what the ideal civilization is you have responsible, honorable, upright men who take care of their families. Okay, who take care of their wives and who help form and their countries. And that's how it happens. That rudimentary fiber is gone. And I'm telling you right now, everything that we have, right? Everything that we have, this whole entire thing for globalism is pushed. Everything from environmentalism, everything to globalism, it is pushed by a feminist undertone. It's pushed by a feminine agenda.
So
it's built on that.
Right.
It's built on the inclusion and the nurturing, and we got to take care. We got to be responsible with this, and we got to take care of so and so. Yeah, good.
No, I was just going to say that it's interesting, that perspective. I've heard. I think Peter Schiff mentioned that before as well. He's even advocated for a certain, not necessarily like a so that in regards to voting rights is I think how he stated it, and kind of like the same type of thought process in regards to that. But I'll definitely go check that video out and listen to it, and see. And you said there was a book too, or just a video?
There's a book. I recommend people go to Amazon and either download it on your Kindle or buy the book outright. It's called Testosterone and Civilization.
Okay, I bookmarked that. Got it. Sweet.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. What I just mentioned is probably the most profane thing that people have ever heard. It's unpopular, but if we were to honestly take a look at it, and dude, they're conservative-minded, sharp-thinking women. When they first hear this, they're like, "What the hell?" And they actually give it thought. They're like, "Yeah, it's true. It's right." Because most of these people are psycho. Dude, honestly speaking, dude, I'm not saying this is the case with all women out there. The vast majority of women, I say 97%. And my wife would agree with me. She's a very, level-headed, clear-thinking, logical woman. It's incredible. I'm very blessed. But I'd say 97% of women out there, maybe okay, that's too over optimistic. Let's say 90% of women have a childlike mentality. They're like children. They're literally like children, bro. Very childlike. Look at all the stuff geared towards them, to them. The fashion, the social media, the this, the that. It is stupid. And then we venerate this childlike thing, and you look at every social justice issue, and who do you have rallying around it? Women. Dude, go to your churches. Go to your local churches. Who are the most active members in your church these days? Women. Women and beta males. Everywhere you look. Think about it.
Very interesting. Absolutely.
Dude, it's shocking. It's shocking. Anyway, that's all I got to say. I can say some more, but I refrain for now. Absolutely. All right, guys. Siege, anything else you want to say?
That is it. I'll try to get those guest books just so we can share more information regarding that, because like I said, I didn't do it justice, speaking to it, and they know a lot more of the details of specifically what's happening. They could probably even give you some examples in several states. So it'll be important, I think, for us to share that information.
Absolutely. And with that being said, we're over and out. And again, there's the secret to saving Western civilization, and that's the problem, Siege. That's the secret, but nobody's got the balls to do it. All right, I'm out. I'm not saying no more.
All right, bro.
I'm gonna get some hate mail today, boy. Later
on. All right, good.